Hi everyone. So Kicad 8 was released a couple of days ago. So I decided to write a blog post to have a look at the details of what is new in Kicad 8. And since Kicad 8 is new, as I said just a few days ago, I thought the first thing to do would be to put Kicad 7 and Kicad 8 side by side, open up one of the projects in the book. I chose the ESP32 clone project since this is a non-trivial project, and I thought it would give us the opportunity to look at those differences in some more detail and then compare Kicad 7 and Kicad 8 user interfaces in the various applications that make up Kicad. I'm not going to go into the details in this particular video. I have written a whole blog post, and later in this blog post I will be looking at specific features that are new or updated in Kicad 8, and I'll be drilling into the user interfaces issues there as well as other new features and updated features. But I thought just to kickstart this article to just do a straight one by one comparison between Kicad 7 and Kicad 8. One more thing, I haven't done this before, so I will be recording my reactions to any similarities or differences as they come across, and I haven't rehearsed this at all. Alright, so here we go. I've opened up my project. I actually have the project in two different folders. On the Kicad 7 side, I'm using the project in this directory here, and in the Kicad 8 side, I'm using this project right here. So the two applications are not competing over the same file. So I've made a copy, but other than a copy, I haven't done any modifications. So the Kicad 8 application is opening up the ESP32 clone project exactly as I left it after working on it in Kicad 7. And we'll see what happens. Alright, so the main Kicad window looks identical. One thing to notice down the bottom here is that the Kicad 8 side has a little bell. I guess notifications appear here, and I also noticed that I can't get rid of this notification window. So the only way to make it go away would be to close Kicad 8. And yeah, I'm saying this because I only tried to open up Kicad 8 once as I was preparing for this recording, and I noticed that the bell button generates a lot of these windows. You can see now I've got a couple, and there's no way to get them to disappear. So I guess that's a bug that will be fixed at some point. I'm just going to ignore this for now. Alright, so everything else looks the same. If we have a look at, for example, preferences, I've got Kicad 7 selected, so preferences looks like this. If I go for Kicad 8, so preferences pretty much looks the same across the two versions. One thing I've noticed is difference is that in Kicad 7 and Kicad 8, the help and window menus are flipped over. So in Kicad 7 there's help, then there's window. In Kicad 8 there's window and there's help. Alright, I'm just going to go inside one of those menus. So I've got Kicad 7 selected. Let's go into, let's say, manage symbol libraries. So that's what symbol libraries looks like. Just going to take a screenshot. Alright, so there's Kicad 7 symbol libraries. Let's compare that to Kicad 8 symbol libraries. So there's symbol libraries on Kicad 8. Remove the sidebar. Okay, so it pretty much looks the same. In Kicad 7, I'm not showing the columns on the right side here of the Global Libraries tab, but it's pretty much the same as it appears in Kicad 8. So I'd say that the user interface here looks the same, no difference. Now let's look at some more interesting applications. Let's start with the schematic editor in Kicad 7. So here's the project in the schematic editor. It looks like this. I'm just going to move or reshape the resize the window, and let's do the same on Kicad 8, and I will resize to make it all fit so we can see it side by side. And I haven't made any changes to the theme that is used in either version of Kicad. Alright, so there's the two applications side by side. You can see there's a message here. As with previous versions of Kicad, there's a notice that this file has been created by an older version of Kicad, and as soon as I click on the save button, that goes away. Alright, so just going to play around with the user interface first and then have a look at the panels on the left side. Alright, so I can use the same gestures on my mouse to move in and out, like zoom in and out, as I do between the two versions. I can also use the middle button on my mouse to pan. So gestures work the same. If I zoom in, the symbols, you can see they look quite similar. I've got a different background, of course, in Kicad 8 versus Kicad 7, but that's something that you can adjust. You can set up. If you look at the buttons, I'm just going to make the panels disappear on the left so you can compare one to one. You can see that between Kicad 7 and 8, all of the buttons on the left side look almost the same. In Kicad 8, there's an extra button down here that shows the Properties Manager. You click on it and you get this panel. So that gives you properties for whatever you have selected. That button is not available in Kicad 7. Aside from that, you have the schematic hierarchy button, which is available on both versions. Down the bottom, you can see down here, you've got information about the item that is selected, and that is very similar in both versions. There's an extra button up here, I believe that is not in version 7. This button right here, I'm just going to remove the hierarchy panel, and that button allows you, allows you to do, this has to do with the grids. So I know that there is an enhancement in the way that the grid is handled in Kicad 8. I'm going to talk more about this later on in this blog. Probably not in this video, but later on this blog. If you want to learn more about the enhancements in the grid, you can just read below. But this button is not available in Kicad 7. So that's another change. Now let's have a look at the top menu. I'm just going to put these two windows side by side. Let's expand and make sure that all the buttons are visible. Alright, so on the top menu, it looks all the same. There's absolutely no difference. And on the right side toolbar, again, absolutely no difference. It all looks the same. There are differences in the individual features. So for example, I do know that there are big enhancements in how the simulator works. So here's a simulator for Kicad 7, and here is the Spice simulator for 8. I haven't set up this project for the simulator, so that's why we got that warning. But looking at the window itself, you can see it has been worked on at least. I'm going to explore the new features and capabilities of the Spice simulator in Kicad 8 elsewhere in this blog post. But it's just an example. Here's a difference in the user interface in the simulator in the schematic. Okay, let's compare the schematic setup window between the two versions. So here's the one for Kicad 8. And here is the one for Kicad 7. And what do we see? Oh, I'm just going to rearrange the window so we don't have this obstruction. All right, that's better. All right, so the windows do look similar, of course. We've got general, we've got electrical rules, and we've got project, but there seems to be more things that can be set up in Kicad 7. So in Kicad 7 general, we've got formatting, we've got field name templates, which also exist in Kicad 7, but now we also have BOM presets. I know that a lot of work has been done in the BOM in Kicad 8, and there's another feature that I will be exploring later on in this blog post. So I'm going to leave it aside for now. I just note that there is a difference here. Under electrical rules, we've got violation severity and pin conflicts map that looks the same across the two versions. Net classes under project, bus, alias definitions, and text variables all look the same. I know that there are enhancements in how net classes are handled, and the information in net classes is communicated between the schematic editor and the layout editor. So I'll explore that again later. But for now, I just note that the preferences look pretty much the same except for the new BOM presets item here under general. All right. Let's have a look at the symbol editor. I'm just going to double click on one of these symbols. Let's say, I'll double click on this one here, just the USB port. Have a look at what the window looks like. So here's the symbol properties for this particular symbol in Kicad 8. And I'll do the same, Kicad 7. It looks like this. Let's put them side by side if possible. So I'm looking at the Kicad 8 side. I still have general and alternate pin assignment. I've got pin functions here, not pin assignments. So there's a difference here. Pin functions looks like it's the same. It might be just a name change, but something I'm going to explore. But it looks like it is the same thing, with just a different name. Under general, I've got the same fields. Preference, value, footprint, datasheet, description. Of course, I can add more in both versions. General, but how this symbol looks like, angle, mirror, attributes, all those look pretty much the same. Awesome. I'm going to cancel out and see if I can do an edit here. So I'm going to say edit with symbol editor on Kicad 8. This will bring up the symbol editor, which I know has also been updated in Kicad 8, but let's see what its user interface looks like. So do the same thing in Kicad 7. All right, so it looks like this. From a high level view, the two symbol editors look the same. You can see that there are panels on the left side of the Kicad 8 version of the editor, which allows you to have a look at the properties or whatever you have selected. You can get properties straight into this panel. And there's also the libraries symbol or button, which opens up the appropriate panel on the left side that it is identical on both. So the main difference here is that now we've got the properties panel, which is new also in this schematic editor. In terms of the buttons, I'm just going to make those side panels disappear and have a look at the one by one comparison of the panels. So again, you can see that the new thing here, the new button in the symbol editor is the properties manager button, and also the same one as we saw in the schematic editor, which has to do with the grids. Right, on the top side, the buttons look the same, and on the right side, we have almost everything being the same, except there's a polygon here. So now we can create polygons. Cool. Just going to cancel that out. All right, so that's it with the symbol editor. Let's continue with the PCB or layout editor. So I'm going to start it in Kicad 8, just using the toolbar button from the schematic editor. Just arrange the layout editor right there in this half of my window. And then do the same thing for Kicad 7. All right, side by side. Now, if you know the Kicad history, Kicad 7, there was a lot of emphasis placed on improving the PCB editor and not so much on the schematic editor. It seems to me that the opposite is true for Kicad 8, where a lot of emphasis was placed on the schematic editor and the layout editor was pretty much good to go from Kicad 7, but there are improvements here. So let's have a look at what those are. Again, just like with the schematic editor, we've got our message here that this project has been created in an earlier version of Kicad. All we've got to do is to basically save it, and that should take care of that message. It's now saved using Kicad 8. In terms of the user interface, in its default state, it looks identical. So both sides look pretty much the same. There are some differences that I can see in the toolbar. So the left toolbar, if I move it across, you can see that again we have this button that deals with the grid, and that's looks like that's the only difference. On the top side, I'm just going to make the two windows larger in width to be able to fit everything in there. All right, so when it comes to the top toolbar, we've got pretty much everything the same. Just make sure that the second row is visible. All right, so one by one, looks like everything is pretty much the same. I have had a couple of plugins installed in Kicad 7, which I haven't done in Kicad 8 since I just started using it now, but I'm sure I'll be able to add those buttons there as well. These are buttons from plugins, so they're not built into Kicad, but everything else looks pretty much the same one by one. I'm curious about what CaiPython looks like. So this is CaiPython on Kicad 8 and Kicad CaiPython on 7. Yeah, the window looks pretty similar. This is another feature I'll be exploring a little bit more because I know that Kicad 8 work has been done on both the CLI features and the Python API. So I'm going to play around with this and see what I can find out and what we can do with KaiPython. But the editor itself, KaiPython, the editor, looks pretty much the same. And let's have a look at the right toolbar. Just move that up there. All right, so we still have the appearance panel with layers, objects, and nets, and looks the same across the two versions. Down the bottom, the panel, again the same. There's some cosmetic differences in how the buttons look like. No, actually they don't. They do look the same either way. The buttons for the toolbar, quick glance, they are identical. No changes there. So I'm going to move that a bit to the side. Split the screen in two equal parts, like that. Let's have a look at some of the preferences. So I'll go into, actually I'll just click on the setup button. So there's board setup for Kicad 7. There's board setup for Kicad 8. And board stuck up. The editor layers look identical. We've got physical stuck up. It looks identical. Board finish identical. Solder mask and paste looks identical. Text and graphics, yep, identical. Formatting in Kicad 8, there's a few additional items down the bottom here. When edit footprints to board, apply defaults, so that's helpful. Text variables, identical. Design rules and constraints looks the same. Predefined sizes, same. Net classes, there's a couple of items here. I'll come back to those. So net classes look identical. Custom rules, as far as I know, there's no change. So looking at the updates on the Kicad website, and violation severity looks the same. So there are a couple of new items. So there are teardrops, which don't exist in Kicad 7. So it looks like this. You can use this feature to specify in detail how the pads should look like. So there's your length, for example. If you want to do a rectangular shape for your pad, you can specify the length, the width, and how curved you'd like those corners to be. It's pretty nice. All right, so that's teardrops, and there's also the length tuning patterns. Of course, there are length tuning patterns in Kicad 7 as well, but there was a different way to provide the properties for those tracks. In Kicad 7, you'd be able to go up to the route menu and use these items here in the route menu to specify how you'd like the track to look when you were doing the track tuning. So it seems like now you can set the length tuning pattern inside the board setup. All right, so that's good. Another thing that I would like to have a look at here and make a comparison is the symbol properties. So if I go into a symbol, let's say this one here, double click on it, we get the footprint properties. Let's see what that looks like in Kicad 8. Looks like this. So it looks very, very similar actually. It looks pretty much the same thing. The tabs look the same. All right, so no change that I can see at the moment in the footprint properties. Another thing that I would like to have a look at while I'm in the PCB editor is to look at the 3D view of the board. So I haven't done any customizations. So let's see what the defaults look like for the 3D view. So here is the 3D view of my board in Kicad 8. And it's the same. Kicad 7 looks like this. So I know that there have been improvements, quite significant improvements in the 3D viewer in Kicad 8, and explore those later. But I can see straight from the start that the 3D viewer in Kicad 8 has got an additional panel here on the side, which is very, very similar to the panel that you see in the layout editor. And this obviously allows you to turn features on and off, things that you can see on and off in the 3D renderer, which you didn't have the ability to do in Kicad 7. It's pretty cool actually. Yeah, it's quite nice. Remove the copper layers as well. Front copper, back copper, paste, silk screen, and so on. That's pretty cool. This is definitely a new thing here. You can make that menu disappear. The rest looks quite familiar. Just going to do a one-by-one comparison. Looks like the 3D viewer in Kicad 8 is simplified. You've got these buttons up to this point, then this button here will show the panel on the side for the appearance, and it doesn't have those other buttons that you can see here in Kicad 7, which allow you to, I guess, make things appear and disappear. You can see what these buttons do. I don't see them in Kicad 8. As a viewport, I wonder if that menu has gone somewhere else. No, I don't see it here. So anyway, this is new. So there's viewports, there you go. Viewports and presets down here in the Kicad 8 3D viewer where these items were. Let's go back to the 3D viewer. All right, those two items were right here in the Kicad 7 version of the 3D viewer. All right, I will do some more in-depth exploration of the changes in the 3D view and Kicad 8 later in this blog post. Okay, I'm going to close all these windows and just go back to the main Kicad window. So I will discard the changes. I'll do the same here. Discard in Kicad 8. Close the schematic editor and discard. All right, so I just wanted to have a quick look at some of these other tools. So let's look at the Gerber viewer. This is the Kicad 7 Gerber viewer and Kicad 8. I haven't exported any Gerbers, so they're going to be empty, of course, but I just want to have a look at what the user interface looks like. So here's the user interface of Kicad 8 Gerber viewer on top of Kicad 7. There's a couple of extra buttons, so all the buttons look the same up to this point. And I'm not sure what these two look almost identical, with just a difference in the way that the colors are set up. So yeah, that's probably going to affect, show layers in exclusive or compare mode, so you can make comparisons. All right. Mirror image, a few little changes there. The top toolbar, let's do a quick comparison of that. Top toolbar looks the same. And on the right side, we have the layers manager, which also looks the same. Okay, so it looks like a minor changes in the Gerber viewer. We've got the image converter, check that out. So black and white looks the same. Grayscale, original picture looks the same across the board. So no changes in the image converter. Calculators. Okay, so with calculator, let's start with the regulators. So there's the regulators, looks the same. Just going to arrange them one on top of the other like this. So Kicad 8 on the right side, Kicad 7 on the left side. So the regulators is the same. We've got resistors calculator in Kicad 8, which does not exist in Kicad 7. Cool. Electrical spacing, it's the same. Via size, it's the same. Track width looks the same. Fusing current, the same. Cable size, the same. Wavelength, it looks the same. RF attenuators, same. Transmission lines, the same. We've got memo, so E-series. All right, so this is obviously different. There's a change here that I'm going to explore later. Color code is the same. Board classes is the same. And galvanic corrosion table is also the same. All right, so one thing that has changed is that the E-series memo looks like it has been transformed into a more graphical layout compared to what it looks like in Kicad 7, which was more like text. All right, so that's it with the calculator tools. Let's have a look now at the drawing sheet editor. It's Kicad 7, sorry, that's Kicad 8 on the right side. So the drawing sheet, version 8 on the right side and version 7 on the right side. That looks pretty much the same. The tools and the buttons on the right toolbar look identical. Same thing on the left and same thing on the top. So no changes in the drawing sheet editor. And finally, the plugin and content manager. Oh, and I think Kicad 8 just crashed. Let's try again. I'll start it up. So Kicad 8 crashed this. I tried to open up the plugin and content manager. So I'll try that again. Just ignore for now. All right. So plugin and content manager on Kicad 8 on the right side, Kicad 7 on the left side. Right, so the layout looks the same. I've got the repository, that's official repository, and you can see that I've added another repository here on Kicad 7, which I can do as well on 8. Let's see if I can actually add that. Just curious. Copy that. Manager, add like that. Unable to load URL. I wonder, have I made a mistake? Nope. Fully qualified repository URL. I have entered that. Oh yeah, it did manage it. So there was a bit of there was a space character in the end of the URL. So okay, it looks the same. It's going to fetch this new repository, and let's see now if I switch to the next PCB repository. I just try to install the plugin, see what it looks like in Kicad 8. It's the first time I do that, so let's see if it works. Install pending. Cool. Let's go and install it. Apply pending changes. Right. Completed successfully. Cool. All right, so now I've got the installed libraries. I've got a few extra items here in Kicad 7, but the user interface looks pretty much the same, and it works the same. So it's all here. If I close that and go into my schematic editor in Kicad 8, this plugin that I just installed actually adds a new button in the PCB editor. So let's open that up. So there is the new button that the plugin just installed. Seems like it doesn't work. Something to look at. It's possible that the team that looks after this particular plugin hasn't had the time to update it for Kicad 8. I'll just make sure that it works in Kicad 7. Oh, okay, that's interesting. So I think there's a conflict between the versions. I think it's possible that Kicad 7 tried to open up the project that Kicad 8 has been opening up. So what about the schematic editor? Nope, conflict. All right. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at this. So this was just a quick comparison of the similarities and differences between the user interface between Kicad 7 and the just released Kicad 8. And as you can see, the user interfaces look really, really similar. I'd say 99% similar. So if you are used to Kicad 7, you'll have no problem at all moving to Kicad 8, and all the windows look the same, with the exception of a few panels that are now available in Kicad 8, especially in the schematic editor. There's a few other features that have been created and added in Kicad 8 that don't exist in Kicad 7, and there's also a few enhancements on features that have been moved from Kicad 7 to 8 and made better. So having now done this, I'm going to focus on those new things, new features, or updated and enhanced features in Kicad 8. I'm going to drill into those and have a look at how they work, and try to do that as much as possible with the help of specific examples, just to demonstrate how those new features or updated features work.